Life is so much fuller when you are calmer, wiser, and happier. If that sounds good to you, sit back and enjoy another relaxing episode of Zen Commuter. Good morning, travelers, and welcome to your morning Zen Commute. I am your host, Tom Walters, and this is Zen Commuter, your meditation podcast aimed at moving you forward peacefully, helping you live a calmer, more satisfying life. Today, I am very excited to bring to you my interview with Josh Dippold. He, like myself, is a meditation instructor who is featured on Insight Timer. And while he does have a longer biography on Insight Timer, the last line is what is most telling about him. He values truth, wisdom, kindness, compassion, courage, empowerment, realizing awakening, and being free. That is one powerful list of 8 that I can totally get behind. You'll hear about those things and many more in this interview. So sit back and enjoy my interview with Josh Dippold. I begin our interview, much like I do many, asking about Josh's meditation journey, what led him to meditating, how long he's been doing it, and where he learned.
Well, I'm kind of more typical in that regard that I came through what's called the dukkha door. And this is a term in Buddhist terminology. Stress is probably the easiest way to do it. Suffering is a really strong term in the West, but we've all experienced really intense periods of really badness. And, just even on the subtler levels, unsatisfactoriness or, this not okayness. And so that's what drove me to it. And that's more typical what I hear of meditators too. But this was in 2012. I had actually hit rock bottom in my life at that point. I won't go into too many details, but I had gotten kind of superficial instructions from a program. But then things were at such a low, I just kind of closed my eyes and I kind of thought of that program if I can think of, if I remember. And after about sitting there for an hour, there's some kind of memories that were built up that purged. And then I just felt this huge relief afterwards. And I'm like, wow, I feel so much better. What do I have to lose? I'm just going to commit to this every day for this foreseeable future. That's the outline part. I haven't met too many people like that. And so I was totally committed almost from day one. I mean, it really started to turn my life around from that very moment. I know this is kind of uncommon and unheard of. And so then within a few days, I was starting to have what some people might call more mystical experiences. But it wasn't long after that then that I was having like my own therapy sessions, right? All this repressed material, what they call psychological splitting, sometimes when things get too intense, it just, whatever I'm not able to deal with at the time splits off and I keep going ahead. Well, that material caught up with me. I was, seeing my own past actions and how I was treating others in not the best way, and things I had totally forgotten about surface to come up, to be seen, to be cleared and healed. I know it's a little heavy right up front here. But,
that's okay. We're not scared.
But it really was so healing for me. And then, after, to the point where it was almost, weeping on a daily basis. I mean, that's how intense it was, but it was acceptable because I was on my own and there's nobody around. So it was appropriate socially to do this. And I didn't really get into any formal meditation instructions until maybe a couple of years later. I was getting so into this and I didn't really know what I was doing, right? And then I was like, well, who knows about this meditation stuff? Don't these Buddhists, don't they meditate? So I looked up online almost naively and I'm like blown away. I mean, it's just this huge, rich, long culture of meditation. And it was, I just kind of just got hooked from there, listened to Dhamma talks and not really knowing what they're talking about at first. And then, oh yeah, okay, I can see what they're talking about in my practice. And it just increasing over time, gradually increasing kind of the wisdom, and then the heart openings were coming. And I mean, there were times when my heart, I felt like maybe something was wrong with my heart, right? There was a huge ache and then in the back as well. But through these practices, maybe we'll get into later, Brahma Viharas and stuff, the heart really started to open up, and it was just a beautiful thing, having this open and flower and things coming up to be seen and healed, cleared again. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's most, well, there are tons of takeaways from that, and thank you for sharing that. But you make it seem like a consistent practice wasn't a challenge for you. Is that an accurate statement?
It is. And like I say, that's why I have a hard time relating to a lot of people. And I have to learn from other teachers like you, where it is, I find that common from people I hear about too. They have a hard time establishing a daily practice. They know they should. You're talking about the meditation police coming after them or something, and I've heard lots of different tips and techniques. If you guys haven't heard some of your podcasts on how to do this, one of the other ones is like, habit. It's like the classic metaphor is, you could skip brushing your teeth every day, but you wouldn't really want to, right? So once the habit gets established, it's just like you feel off or you feel wrong or something's not right.
Missing or
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, imagine walking around all day with your teeth just like a sweater on your teeth all day. Yeah. So it's just kind of energetic hygiene too, in a way,
Right. Mm-hmm. And to that point, one of the things I was talking about, I was a guest on somebody else's show right before we came on. And one of the things we were talking about is how our society, and I was talking about this with the host, that our society tells us to not sit still. Our society says, move at all costs. Don't be a blight on society. You have to produce. You have to be moving. You have to be doing something. And I was telling him that, so imagine if you are a person who's starting a meditation practice, and up till this point, whether you be 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, every minute you woke up, somebody was subtly whispering in your ear, keep moving, keep moving, keep doing, keep doing. So that it gets ingrained in you. So when I think about a consistent practice, every time you sit on your cushion or in your chair, you're going against society. And depending on who you are, that can be really tough. I mean, if you're deeply ingrained in society, you're like, I can't sit. So if you're a meditator and you're like, okay, cool, I know meditation is good for me. And the first hiccup you get, they're like, oh, I'm running late. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to meditate today. It's like, you're basically just saying, society's just saying, yeah, you're late. Keep moving, keep moving. So kudos to you for turning a deaf ear to society.
Well, I appreciate it. This is the classic thing, well, just like you say, the whole momentum of one's life, if they're trained that way, that habit pattern is built up a lot of strength and energy throughout time. So it's going to take time and effort to start to unravel that in practice. And we've got the opposite too, though. People that are into what's called the hindrance, that's called restlessness and anxiety, or restlessness and remorse, right? Are maybe too much energy and not applied the right way. And the other opposite end is sloth and torpor. And I know those are big old antiquated words, right? We could just call them like lethargy and
laziness.
Laziness too. Some people have that issue. Oh, meditate, great. I'll just lay on the couch even more now, all right. So, or you get really deep into practice, and this is a hindrance I struggled with for quite a while. I just start doing what they call the Zen nod, right? Just nodding off, right? Some people, their body needs more sleep. So what I tell some people, especially if they go on retreat, sometimes they're sleeping like for the first day because they're so over deprived of sleep. That's actually more important for the body, and the body realizes that they actually need to sleep. So sometimes it is actually just need to sleep, but then there's other ways of dealing with that hindrance, just like there is restlessness, and anxiety and types of things like this. And, in the sitting practice too, which great. I'm big on a formal sitting practice. I think it's one of the most important things for my meditation practice. However, what's often neglected, again, is these other postures. You can do a formal standing and a formal walking and a formal lying down, which is the most challenging for me because we're so conditioned once we lie down, go to sleep, right? and then also just through our daily lives, being mindful of when we reach out with our arm or our hand, where the body is in space, transitioning from postures. So, and then integrating all this into our lives, that's a whole nother art of meditation as well.
You bring up a good point too. And many times I'm asked by students and by people, once they know that I'm a meditation instructor, to say, is it okay to meditate at night? I'm like, well, there is no right or wrong. But if you truly want to meditate, you might want to find a time where you are not more prone to sleep. So to your point, so many times people told me, they're like, well, I usually meditate and then I fall asleep. I'm like, okay, so you're kind of there. I'm like, and I always tell them, like, at least you got a great night's sleep. They're like, yeah, I usually get the most sound sleep after I fall asleep from meditating. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But to your point, if you want to have a consistent practice that is meditating all the time, then you might want to go to a chair first thing in the morning or your cushion and not be lulled back to sleep, sleep by your practice.
That's identifying these patterns and our behavior are really important too, because it doesn't apply to everybody. Some people like me can get up right in the morning and just go straight to the cushion and be great. I love doing that. Some people can't. They just try to go back to sleep, and then I typically have the thing like you say where I get more, drowsy in the evening. So yeah, it does make sense to do it when you're not falling asleep, or if, we can use an extra session if we're having trouble sleeping too, if that works for you. And that's a big thing. I found over time, I don't need as much sleep anymore because there's so much deep, peaceful rest.
Yeah.
And conscious of it too during meditation. So this is a common thing among seasoned practitioners is they don't sleep as much as they used to. And at the same time, they feel as even more rested and, yet at ease.
Because it's a deeper restorative sleep for sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the other things I talked about or would like to talk about is the perception, or not the perception, but how your meditation changes. And I mean day to day as opposed to over time. Well, let's start long term. So you've been meditating for a while. How has your meditation practice changed from the first time you meditated to today?
Yeah, all these benefits that we hear about meditation, to me, they're like a side effect. It's great.
Yeah.
You hear these drugs and all these effects they have. I would call them effects. I mean, some of these drugs, and they're not even side effects, they're effects. I mean, they have noticeable changes in certain ways on certain people. No matter what it is, not all the time, right?
Right.
But the nice thing about meditation is all these benefits that people claim in the everyday work away world, a day world too,
You're right in both cases.
Yes, exactly. They're side effects. This is just tends to happen almost naturally as we practice. We don't even almost have to set these goals even. A lot of times these things just kind of unfold naturally. The benefits like better sleep, better concentration and focus without a lot of effort, ease and calm, clear mind, able to relate to other people better, opening to more empathy and compassion, on and on. The list is long, and that's the side effect. So for me, I know there's some tendency around this, but I do look at the Buddha as an example. Obviously, I mean, of course, I don't compare myself to the Buddha,
right.
but he did say that it is possible in this very life to, know suffering and know the end of suffering. And so, I mean, I think that is important to know the ultimate goal and to not blow it off as, oh, that's not possible or anything like that, because we are able to see where there is more and more stress within ourselves and in the world, and then know kind of the cause of that and know that it's possible to have an ending of that and how to do it. And so not to give like a Buddhist preaching thing here, but it's just, I think that's at the end of the day, that should at least be a consideration in people meditating, and we can just say the cessation of, so the ending of stress, it is possible in this life. I know in my own experience, it has gotten way less stress over time. There were a lot of challenges starting off. There's less challenges in those same regards, So on the day-to-day basis, it depends how much we want to dial into detail. because everything is seemingly in flux. It's just kind of at different rates of change, right? A lot of inspiration. Well, I guess so. I'm going to ask you to more specific. If we want to look day to day, moment to moment, hour to hour, minute by minute, what kind of scale do we want? And point me in a more specific direction.
And thank you for clarifying that, because that in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, that was a pretty broad question, because if I think about my practice, there are the day to day practical things that you talked about, like, yeah, I'm more attentive, more focused, more creative. I'm like, yeah, those are cool things. But to the same point too, I experienced things on my cushion that I never experienced when I was 18 or 20. I'm like obviously connection to source and our divinity. So I will say, let's go for the heavy hitters. How has your meditation practice changed, either not for better or for worse, but how has it changed in regards to connecting to source? Let's take the pragmatic out of this. You mentioned earlier when we started talking about your practice that, like, right from the get-go, you're like, I am seeing the world in a brand new way from like the first couple of weeks or months on your chair. So how has your spiritual life changed from when you started meditating to now?
Well, so there's two huge words that need to be defined here: spiritual and source, and those are big ones.
Those are heavy hitters.
They are, and I don't shy away from heavy hitters. But
good.
Other than for source, I'm going to just redefine that as because to me that's a little bit not metaphysical so much, but in a way it is. Let's look at. I want to look at seeing reality for what it really is.
Love it. Absolutely love
it. That's kind of more of the goal than connecting with source. But as far as that concept goes, I will say, to me, that's interconnectivity. That word resonates more with me too. Nice. So knowing that we don't exist in a vacuum, and that what we do and say and think matters. It has effects. We do something skillfully, it's more likely to have a skillful effect. If we do something unskillfully, it's more likely to have an unskillful effect. Maybe not right away, but little by little, these things can add up. And so I've just noticed the interconnectivity. So when we talk about empathy, this is a direct experience in the body of connecting with each other. And even, it sounds pretty wild and mystical, but even inanimate objects, like you get around this huge, majestic tree or a forest, right? And I just feel different in that space than I do if I go into a city with sharp corners and steel and glass and hustle and bustle and people looking to get ahead. So it's a felt knowing in the body how it is. And these are pretty obvious examples that most people can relate to, right? Think about a place you go to, like your grandmother's house, and your place you're loved and cared for, someplace you feel really welcome and at ease and you belong there, versus somewhere that you've never been before. It's chaotic, or maybe even in a new culture or something like that. So these are things that we just notice, and we can tune into not just our thoughts about it, but how it feels in our body. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, connecting with source, I would say interconnectivity that way.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No,
go ahead.
We'll come back to reality. Go ahead. So we keep your thread here. Yeah.
So to that point, and thank you, because one of the things I talk about in regards to meditation is, and I wouldn't say it's fleeting, but the intensity varies. So there are times I'll be on my cushion and I'll feel connection to all life through, not just on this planet, but all life everywhere. And then other times I get off the chair and I'm like, oh, that was nice. That was peaceful. So it sounds like you've experienced that same thing.
The nice thing, yes, absolutely. And the nice thing about the meditation for me is just a regular standard, what they call samatha practice that I've heard you talk about too, just connecting with one object over and over again, like the breath. It gradually over time, it hones awareness to be able to tune into things on subtler and subtler levels. Like once we weren't attuned to the subtle layers or looking deeply into things, we were more on a gross level, right? But now we can tune in to finer and finer grains of details and things that we didn't notice before. So that helps a lot. Also, a receptivity, especially for the masculine. There's this kind of active energy in doing, but when we sit on a cushion in a formal practice, there's way more that our receptivity muscle gets built up, right?
Mhm.
Because we're opening and allowing to something, and we come to a state of more of a surrender, and you're not really doing anything or being active, at least on the external, right? There's a
Right.
lot of stuff that can go on inside.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
that receptivity opens us up to a possibility for more interconnectivity, to see connections, to feel connections, to see how I can't live in this world without people growing food, stocking the supermarket shelves, transporting the items, me going and buying it so that all the people in the chain can, live and support each other, this interdependence too that we have. And so, but that's the kind of the standard basic thing that we kind of see, and it can get way more mystical from there too. Now, the nature of reality, some people might be like, oh, what are you talking about?
I was just going to say, I love talking like this, but I'm sure most people are like, okay, those two are out there.
Because there is so much solipsism in our world. From what I understand of that term, it's just like, oh, there's no truth. Nothing matters. It's all relative. Or when people talk about their truth, I look at that as their perception. And, I don't want to get, so uh, perception also starts to expand when we meditate too. The
Hugely.
things that we couldn't see before, now we can see it in all kinds of ways. We thought maybe we only had, vote one way, vote another. Well, wait, there's other options. There's third parties, or I don't have to vote, or I could only vote for this section and not that section. All these new ways of seeing become more prevalent. A lot of things get cleared that stand in the way. Once these hindrances clear up, we see all these other opportunities that we were missing before. So many other choices, and we can kind of co-create these choices as well as this opens up. But now there is certain meditation systems that go really in depth. I'm thinking of the Venerable Pak Sayadaw. He's a Burmese meditation master, considered by some to be one of the more predominant or preeminent meditation masters and the living meditation masters right now. And based on this old ancient text called the Visuddhimagga. So I don't know if you know about jhana practice, but in that tradition, right, they even get into jhana practice before you get into the vipassana practice. So we're going deep here too. So
Right.
There's a very systematic method, step by step. And I just wanted to, maybe I'm going a little bit on a tangent here, but it also, depending on one's, I guess, character or disposition, I've met some meditators that are really into this technicality. They want a really defined step-by-step guide, or this is what you look for, all these maps, the specific process. And I don't usually work like that.
I don't work like that at all.
I don't, but some people do. Some people have this highly technical mind and they love this specific guide. And I'm fascinated by it. I learn, and it's so in depth and so mind-blowing, amazing to me. But I don't work like that too. Your podcast is called the Zen Commute. I studied under a Chan master for a while, and even though he was based in Theravada, but I love Zen. It's simplistic in a way. It's simple in a way, but so profound and often overlooked. It's almost
Right.
too simple. People don't notice it. Another thing is it's about the whole daily life too. They say in Zen, you have two jobs, right? You meditate and you sweep the temple, and the temple includes the entire world, right?
Right.
But the other thing is I love the craziness of it sometimes. Like, just like these crazy Zen masters, if people don't know what they're doing, they would think, what is wrong with this guy? But it's like, once you get into it, then you can kind kind of see, wow, this is some really profound wisdom trying to wake us up, trying to get us out of our old stuck habit patterns for our own good. And there's different schools that have different approaches based on people's character and dispositions.
And where they are on their path, too. And you bring up a good point. Two things I want to take away from that. And one is the last point that you made is just, I actually got this in a meditation the other day, and it was eye-opening to say the least. But the biggest message, well, not the biggest, but one of the messages in the meditation was, wake up as many people as you can. As many people who are as close to waking up as possible. And I remember the words exactly: not a religion, not a cult, just love. Wake up as many people as you can. I'm like, cool, I can do that.
This is so great, because I've got a series now launched on my website called Catalyst for Awakening and Change.
Nice.
And this is tackling this very topic. And I've talked about awakening, or so-called awakening. That's another term that's fascinating to me. And so if I could ask you, because I've found this notion of sometimes I impose on people trying to wake them up. But we can both agree the safe thing is, if some people come to us interested in awakening, then yes, we can do it for sure. But there are things I think we can do to test the waters amongst those. One of the ways I like to do is just ask a question. Oh, hey, did you know about this? Or what do you think of this? And then we can kind of gauge their openness and level of what approach might work best for them to get into more of what needs to be done to realize awakening.
Right.
And it is just as simple as that in some regards. The notion of a dream, right? We were so involved in this dream, and it seems so real, and it seems so important. And then we wake up and wait a second, I didn't even realize that was a dream. What happened to that? So I love the metaphor of awakening and dream, like we're in this dream world. And I think gradually too, they talk about gradual awakening and sudden awakening in Zen and in practice too. And it just seems over time, wow, what I once thought was, oh, this is how it is no, that's somebody's idea about how they wanted it to be, and they wanted other people to come on board with it for various reasons. But how much can we strip away of all this, here's a big word, extemporaneous, all this stuff that's not really needed in our lives for our own well-being, and seeing things for how they actually are? How much of that, a lot of practice too, is just discarding what's not necessary, what don't we need?
And you bring up a good point too, is one of the things I always say on Zen Commuter, and just in my teaching, and I'm like, I don't know your path. I will never know anybody else's path but my own. But one of the things I talk about on Zen Commuter is, like, I teach meditation for that very reason. I don't have any answers for you. Like, I would never want people to think of me as a guru. Not that I think anybody does. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't really care. But to that point, I'm like, I have no answers for you. But one thing I do know about is helping you find that answer for yourself, turning inwardly. So obviously, to your point, if people come to me, it's like, how can I make my life deeper? I'm like, well, there are two things. A, we have to define what deep is. But then we got to find out what's, to your point, what resonates for you. And obviously, we're talking about meditation, but so the people that come to me, I always tell them, like, I have no answers, but I'll help you find the answers for yourself. So to facilitate that awakening. And then there are some, one of the things too is my mom had a great quote, and my listeners will know what this quote, well, one of many, but she said, the greatest gift that you can give somebody is the example of your life working. So when I'm out in the world, I'm like, I'm not preaching. I'm like, just, this is my life. If some aspect of my life draws you to me, yeah, we can talk. Like it's maybe like, God, you're happy all the time. I'm like, first off, no, I'm not. Happy is my default. Calm is my default. Yeah, but it doesn't happen all the time, because my life would be incredibly boring if that was the case. But yeah, so if people and I also know, and maybe you feel the same way, like, wherever I end up is where I'm supposed to end up, whether that be a job, whether that be at a supermarket. My soul navigates my life. And because I have my meditation practice, I am guided to where I'm supposed to be. And talking to our overarching point about reality, so many things that I've learned in my meditations is that what I perceive reality to be is not reality at all. It's much like what you said. It's like somebody's idea of reality. And there's so many times in my meditation where I'm like, and my listeners are going to hear me say this again, but I'm like, it's all an illusion, but it's an illusion that I created. And so there are many times that in my meditation, and I'm like, it's like, yeah, I'm looking all around. I'm like, this doesn't exist, but I created it. And right now, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to have this, and I'm supposed to be in the real world. And I'm like, but one of the things that I love about my meditation practice, and I'd love to hear your perspective as well. It's like, I exist in this world. Who said it the other day? And it's definitely a quote from a poet, or I am in this world, but not of this world. Maybe I got those two, but it's like, I'm walking around. I'm like, yeah, this is nice. I like this place, but it's not real. But for right now, it's where I'm supposed to be. Do you have instances of that in your meditations as well?
Oh, these are really good points here. The not being in the world but not of the world is a really classic saying, and I really like that as well. Now,
Right.
this notion of having answers. So I go back to that, and the other thing is being where. I'll come back to answers, but I wanted to pick up the notion of wherever we are, whether we're supposed to be there or not, depending on where you differ on that, there you are. It's like this, wherever you go, there you are, that classic saying, right?
Right.
So whether you want to throw yourself a pity party, or you think this is the greatest, I'm scrubbing toilets, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm probably the same. There's
I get you.
right?
Right.
But the thing is, what are you going to do about it now? Here I am. What's the best way to view this and perceive it and then act?
Right.
I mean, those are the things. Kind of control is a type of illusion, but the things we do have a lot of seeming agency, and we can see this in our meditation practice is, what are we paying attention to? We can choose to pay attention to the breath, right? Now a lot of people can't stay there permanently locked on until a lot of practice, but also, how are we with whatever, we choose to pay attention to something, but how do we pay attention to it? That's another seeming choice we have, because we can't control what happens to us, right? Sometimes it seems like we can have more control over others, but eventually in the long term, there's no way we can arrange all these external conditions in our lives just perfectly and then expect they're going to stay exactly the way we want them all the time. I mean, that's not a setup for success in the long term, because eventually something's going to come along and topple that. So how are you? This classic spiritual question: how are we when things don't go our way? That's a big one.
That is a big one.
So going back to the thing about answers, I mean, I think it's okay to answer things, but just as long as I make it clear, and I still have a way to go with this, is that it's just my answer. It's not the ultimate truth, obviously.
Right.
And it's and I think it's okay to draw conclusions, but the more we cling to some kind of conclusion that we draw, I think the worse off it's going to be, because if something comes along and flies in the face of that, and then we want to cling on to that, it's going to be devastating. It's going to be hard to let that go. So I look at things as information, right? Because there's not a huge emotional investment into that. Like beliefs, sometimes they have a lot of emotional investment. So when something comes along that flies in the face of a belief I have, then it's going to be hard for me to let it go, because I put so much time and energy into this belief. But if reality is saying otherwise, it's going to be hard to let go of that, and it's going to stink when I finally am met with that. So I don't think a lot of people are also set up to where I have to believe or disbelieve something. But I don't think that's the case. What if we just considered it as information, and And yeah, we have to draw conclusions in life sometimes, I think, to make choices or to see things or to make sense of the world. But just know that they don't have to be ultimate and permanent, and we have to have them forever. And it's okay to give answers to ourselves and others, but just know that it's not the ultimate reality of the way things are. I mean, I'm exaggerating here to make a point, right?
Right, exactly. But I mean, you bring up a ton of salient points, and one of them is not to have an ego connection to a belief. I mean, obviously, I'm, as old as I am, I'm like, I've got beliefs and values that work for me. But depending on where I am in the day, I'm either linked more to my human self or my higher self, where my human self is like, no, I'm this, and I believe this, and this. Whereas my higher self be like, yeah, okay, cool. You can believe that, but that's not the only answer, right? You know that belief pattern was ingrained in your human psyche and being, so it's just as illusory as anything else. So, the other day I was driving back from the supermarket, and there was a political sign on somebody's lawn for a candidate that I don't really believe in. So, and my human reaction was like, how could anybody believe that person is blah, 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 blah? And then my higher self just said, dude, that's just your belief. Let it be. Your belief and what you believe in does not discredit what they believe. They can all coexist, and they all can coexist because they're all made up, even yours. So just let it go. I'm like, oh, another thumbs up for meditation, for taking my ego out of the equation.
Beautiful the way put. We can all, I think at the core of that is dignity and respect, right?
Yeah.
We have such a lack of respect these days, and I'm still working on it, especially guys too. Honor and respect is huge amongst guys, and it's so needed, because when we can agree to disagree. We can all coexist, like you say, with different opinions. We don't have to convince somebody of one thing or another,
Right.
And I think even the way I look at all this is I not circumvent, but in order to not have as much importance on belief or disbelief or agreement or disagreement, what are my core values? That's the system I use too. So out of all the things we value in life and what is really important to us, can we identify, like, I don't know, 2 to 5 core values? And so doing this in deep contemplation, and then once those are identified, then I can be in alignment with those core values, right? And so then I can say, okay, well, this doesn't align with my core value of this, So like for instance, mine are like truth on like one wing of a bird, seeking reality, wanting to know what's real, and the truth of things and the truth of the way things are. On the other hand, wisdom, or truth and wisdom, right? And then on the other hand, the heart qualities. So we have compassion, loving kindness, being happy for other people's happiness, and these are no limits, in equanimity too, the calm that can result in meditation. And then I have like a bird in the sky, courageous, right? It's just natural courageousness. It doesn't think I'm going to fall out of the air any minute and plummet to my death. No, it just flies because it's a bird. It doesn't even think that it's courageous. It really does. And
right.
Fear is another huge topic to work with on the cushion for most people.
Yeah, massive.
So then when I really identify those core values, and I look at things on the external, the internal, and saying, okay, well, I mean, to use a divinity term here, you can say, well, I see and honor your divinity or your Buddha nature, but that's just not for me right now. You can, I honor that. I see that, but that's not where I'm at. And that's not what I align with. That's not what I value, so I don't need to feed more time and energy into that and amplify that when I can just bring it back and orient towards things that do align with the core value. And then this is kind of like a compass for daily life too, and what's important and what we can spend our time and energy on as well.
And that's where meditation obviously totally shines. And my listeners obviously know that I use this metaphor all the time. Like when I get on my chair and my cushion, it's like I put a bubble over me. And I talked at the beginning of our talk about how when we wake up, society and all these thoughts are just hitting us every day. And we don't know what's real, what's imagined. We just react. But with my meditation practice, I kind of in my mind, I find myself like in a force field, like a superhero. I got a force field around me, and all these thoughts are like bouncing off the force field. I'm like, okay, I don't even hear you anymore. All I hear is me and me. I'm turning inwardly, and I'm finding out what resonates with me, what is important to me. And to your overarching point, I'm like, for me and human me, higher me, these are the things that resonate. And I know that they don't have to resonate with everybody, but for those core values you're talking about, like, this is how I live my life. This is what brings me joy, gives me guidance, gives me peace. And I'm like, and that's all I have to worry about. I don't have to worry about changing anybody else. I don't have to have somebody else see the way I see. Like, my life is my life. And it's not self-centered at all. If anything, one of the things I talk about with meditation, one of the misbeliefs people have is like, well, it's kind of selfish to just sit on a cushion by yourself and just not produce and not be doing anything. I'm like, trust me. I'm a pretty nice guy, but I'm a better guy because of my meditation practice, because I know what resonates with me. Because of my practice, I know of connection. I'm like, trust me, my being on the cushion, it's the least thing from selfish. It's the farthest thing from selfish ever.
It's a really good point, because once we have our own house in order and we're okay to be okay within ourselves, because we're interconnected, that benefit of just connecting with ourselves and being okay in ourselves and developing these skillful qualities, then everybody we come into contact with benefits.
Right.
And like you're saying, just the more obvious thing of when I'm in a horrible mood, or really crappy, then who wants to be around me and when I'm like that,
Exactly.
And then like you're saying, your mother's point to being this role model, this behavior, because my behavior was atrocious, 20 years ago.
Right.
It was not pretty, and it was not helpful. But I was blind to that, and I couldn't even see that until I sat down and like, wow, how could I have been so blind to all this stuff and behavior? And that hurt, in that kind of like, oh, how could I be so gullible? That could easily go into negativity, but it's just like, oh, wow, we all experience tough times in life.
Mm-hmm.
And now it feels horrible. So like, what can we do? And this is another point I want to bring in here for the masculine, especially, is the focus on the heart,
Mm-hmm.
because, our expressions of care differ from the feminine, so like it is really important, I think, for the masculine to go into the heart and first see what's there and develop it in the most beautiful and beneficial ways there are. This a lot of it has to do with a lot of people are in a lot of pain, and they don't want to face the pain, because
Right.
I get it, it's challenging.
Right.
But this is what's needed too, for people that are in a lot of pain, is to do it and do it in a helpful way, and whatever ways we need to do it and we can't if pain is so severe, we can't be with it all the time, right? We have to have all these other coping mechanisms and things too.
Right.
So how can we develop the heart? And even if we're not in a really painful space, or a lot of that's gone away, the energy of the heart, the more it's developed and built, the more fuel it provides us to go into higher levels and to develop more skillfulness, more wisdom, more these heart qualities like kindness and compassion and equanimity that are just profound. In the Buddhist tradition, it's called the Brahma Viharas, or the sublime abodes. Where are we living? Metaphorically speaking or energetically speaking, are
Right.
we living in a dumpster fire? Are we, in a heavenly realm where things are magnificent and kind and helpful and peaceful? And even when it's not okay, can we be okay with it not being okay too? So.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just going to say, and not to interject, what is okay? I mean, that's another thing too. That's all perception. It's all,
Yes.
and obviously our meditation practice helps with that. One question I have for you that came up as
Sure.
you're so articulately explaining your point was where you were before, the old person you are and the person you are now. Has your meditation practice given you any compassion for that other self? Have you come to a point where you were grateful for the person that you were, even though when you look back, you're like, God, I was a real dick. Have you come to terms with, and there's no right answer, obviously, but what's your answer to that?
Very good question. And I'll defer to kind of one of my online teachers here that I really like that helped me a lot in a certain period. And he's got a massive following now, Matt Kahn, Kahn. I think it's his second book, Everything is Here to Help You. And
I like
it revolves around the question, what if the worst things that ever happened to me was the greatest gift I've ever been given? And it really, set me. You talk about perceptual shifts here. So he's taking all these things that people think are so horrible, and he's kind of looking at them in a new light and saying, how is this helping me actually? These classical spiritual things are, like what is this trying to teach me, right? And I would say yes, compassion, that's the only thing that makes sense at certain points when things are really, really challenging, of all the different options we have to how to view things and respond to things. I really have not found any wiser, better way when things are really, really rough. And I'm not talking that pity is really, it's called a near enemy of compassion, because it's similar, but pity means, okay, I'm going to distance this and feel bad about it so I can feel better about myself because of it. No, a compassion is a connect that we all are here. We're all struggling from time to time on certain levels. And then, but if I stay there and I'm just empathic with that pain, then there's two people in pain, or there's more pain. So at a certain point, then I see my classic compassion phrases if I'm doing a formal compassion practice, or I acknowledge this pain. So acknowledgement is huge. A lot of times we pretend it doesn't exist, and it shouldn't be there. But or it shouldn't be like this. Well, I got news for you. It is. This is how it is right now. It's happening. It's like this now. It doesn't matter if it should be that way or not. It's like this right now. So just being honest with ourselves sometimes in those situations is such a huge eye-opening refreshment. And then I care about this pain. And like we were talking earlier, the way men care is different from the way females care. I mean, I'm a little bit old school, so we can just say masculine and feminine, right? So what degree of helpful care am I able to have right now? True, honest care to the best of my ability now. I'm not probably where I want to be, but what can I muster now? And then may this pain release, and may I know peace. So a lot of times these strategies are there to release this pain. There's more wise and skillful ways to release pain than others, I would say. But at the end of the day, if they're in service to being peaceful, I think that's a good start. So yes, I would say that absolutely, because of some challenging times in my life, that's about the only thing that makes sense. When I look at all the options of lashing out, shutting down, distracting, numbing out, all these horrible coping strategies, or even good coping strategies, like I'm just gonna put my attention on my feet now for a little bit, or watch a inspiring movie.
Uh-oh. I don't know if you're still hearing me. You froze. So obviously I'll have to make note of this. Did I lose you for good? I hope I didn't lose you for good. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, the hotspot must have dropped out. So
I'm going to make note of this point for editing reasons. 12.
Sure.
Because I'm like, usually
funny that we talked about that too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'll pick up right where I would left off. That of all those decent strategies that we have, again, compassion is the thing that makes the most sense for me. Yeah.
Right. I love that fact that you brought up pity, and it seems like it was more personal, but than connection, but the connection plays into it. The reason it struck me as resonant for me is one of the things I learned a long time ago was about pity. And you put it so articulately, because if I see somebody who is disabled in a store or somebody struggling, back in the day, I used to be like, oh, man, that poor son of a gun. And in a meditation a long time ago, it says, pity is not needed. Pity is unnecessary. When you are pitying somebody, you are disconnecting from them. You're saying, well, this person has this going on. I don't, but it masquerades as compassion, but it's separating nonetheless. So right now, I love that I got that lesson in my meditation because now I see the world as Pollyannish as it seems, as my brothers and sisters, whether somebody is differently abled, whether somebody has a different viewpoint politically. I'm like, anytime I find myself disconnecting from anybody, and it's not a daily thing, but some days I go into the supermarket and I'm like, I got to pick up bread. I want a BLT. And I'm like, I see it. Look at all these people. Oh, this place is busy. Other times I walk into the supermarket, I'm like, wow, here I am with my family. This is so awesome. So anytime I disconnect or have a seeming disconnection from the world, I have a mantra. I'm like, I am you and you are me. And it just kind of brings everything back into into where things need to be, for me anyway.
That's so great to find something to connect with and a shared experience. I know for me, a lot of times that the pity seems to come from, okay, that could happen to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to admit that could happen to me. And so I want to distance myself so I don't have to feel that. And because a lot of times if we're around somebody and pity comes up, it's because I don't want to be like them. I don't want to feel that way, and I don't want to have that experience. And so I feel bad for them in order that I can feel better about myself.
Insulate yourself.
Yes, exactly. So speaks to the next point in meditation, and the four foundations of mindfulness is the mindfulness of feeling tone or hedonic tone. Is this pleasant, unpleasant, or neither of those? And so many of our choices in so many ways we view things is because it's either pleasant or unpleasant.
Yeah,
right? If it's pleasant, we want more of it. We're trying to hang on to it. If it's not pleasant, get it away from me. I don't want it. How can I get out of this? And just knowing that, just being aware of those things, then, okay, well, this is what's happening now. How am I with that? How can I be with that? Sometimes it is skillful to get the heck out of there or get more of this because it's helpful, right? But other times it's just we're going on unconscious habit patterns just based on pleasant and unpleasant. Simple.
What a great awareness, because I was kind of giggling because that thought is just so alien to me. And sometimes it's not. Some days I'm very human. I'm like, this really sucks. And but most times I'm just like, all right, it is as it is. How are we going to, what you point out, how can I use this to move me forward? And, getting in that, getting back to pity, staying out of the pity party for myself. And most times my default is, connecting to my higher self. But there are times where I'm like, this really stinks. But my meditation practice is perfect. So if something, quote, bad happens, then I just go to my cushion. I'm like, okay, I know bad was a judgment I placed on it. How can I grow from this? Where can I move forward from a human standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from a higher standpoint, from a soul perspective? And it's just so funny that we all do this, and myself included, you included. Like every now and then, there are weaker moments like, this really sucks. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Or like, okay, yeah, this really blows. I got to get out of here. I'm like, whereas in my more enlightened moments, I'd just be like, yeah, you're feeling your body and you don't like it. Stay. Stay.
Absolutely. And this goes to our comfort zone too, because we have some people, this is the polarity here, some people that they have too much comfort zone, right? And they never want to get out of it. And so they immediately start to feel a little bit uncomfortable or, I don't want to do this. Then I think it's helpful for those people to push against their comfort zone, get outside their comfort zone more. There's other people that are like adrenaline junkies. So like they never have a moment of rest whatsoever. They don't even know what a comfort zone is. They're all over the place all the time, crazy, thrill seeking, all this stuff. They might need to dial it back a little bit,
Right.
instead of running themselves ragged. go into their comfort zone more. So this notion of balance, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
And
growth
again,
does come from, getting outside of our comfort zone a lot of
oh
times.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think about, and I talk about this on the show all the time, like
Mhm.
the times I've grown the most is when I've been in the most pain and when I've gone through the most pain. It's like, you don't learn much when you're sitting on a beach in the, overlooking the Mediterranean. But when you're like, you just got fired from a job or you just lost somebody that you love dearly, it's like, okay, I can get through this.
And not that we have to go out of our way to have these things happen,
No.
because it's almost like the things that we need to address are going to be mirrored to us in our lives, are going to come up. So it's not like we have to always go outside of our comfort zone or look for challenging situations, or avoid them either all the time, because that's another thing that comes up with meditation practice, just this innate trust in knowing that things are going to be okay. I'm going to have the fear of missing out stuff. That's, we're going to have the experiences we need to have, whether we want them to or not. We're not going to miss out on them. We have this deep trust that everything's, I'll have exactly what I need, exactly when I need it. Once that I can't be threatened with poverty or the other extreme of vast amounts of wealth where I can't live my lifestyle and my friends because I have to do so many more responsibilities. If we can't be kind of threatened with either of those extremes on money, then there's just, just having this trust that we're going to have the resources we need to do what we need to do, what we're here to do. And that goes to this okayness too. So that I would say this radical acceptance, that's another teaching he has of it's okay to everything. The exception being abuse. Abuse is never okay.
Right.
Other than that, and it's okay not to be okay. It's okay that I don't like something, and it's okay that I shouldn't be like that. But so this radical acceptance of that mantra, it's okay. And then the step 2 part of that is making you can do that as long as you want, but finally coming to the point where the choices that we know we need to make that we've been putting off. That's the step 2. So we don't have to do those right away. It's okay. But when we're ready to do that, then we can make the choices we know we need to make that we've been putting off. So, yeah.
And I love
that radical acceptance really helped me a lot too.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's so helpful in everything because it puts things in perspective. As an entrepreneur, I was talking to somebody the other day. It's like, there are days where I'm like, oh, cool, all bills are taken care of. Other days I'm like, ooh, okay, how am I going to get rent this week? So it's like up and down. And in those more human moments, you'd be like, dude, am I going to be on the street? Am I going to be on the street? I'm like, dude, first off, you're good. You're always going to be good. And, that always comes through in meditation. And you think about that too, like in those more human moments, like we'll have food to eat, and then you just think about it, like realistically, you've been alive for 60 years. When was the last time that you went to bed hungry? And you think about it, you're like, I never have. I'm like, you're always going to be okay. You're always going to be fine. Your brain is going to say you'll be living under a bridge and have no food. But the reality for you is that won't happen. So get back in perspective. And obviously, to our point, compassion-wise, there are people where that is a problem, where that is a challenge, and you send love and light. And on some level, I wouldn't punish myself or diminish that. It's like, when you think that, it's really kind of, this epiphany just came to me, it's kind of disrespectful to people that are experiencing that. It's like, your mind is creating a reality that isn't a reality, whereas it's a reality for somebody else. So just dial it back, just reel in. And to your point, you're always going to be fine. And I mean, that's my meditation practice. Like, you're always going to be fine. You'll always be loved. You'll always be taken care of. You're always safe. So
there are so many different fear programs, I feel too, and there's a big one around money. And so the sooner we can see that there's a lot of fear involved around money, the more that we have the strategies to deal with those programs.
Right? Yeah. Part of being human.
Yeah, it is. In the day and age that we're at, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Josh, we are coming up. We've gone past an hour, and we could talk for another 5 hours. I've enjoyed this time for sure. But before we do go, I'm going to have you stay on. We'll stop the recording and for guests. But while we do have listeners on, how can they follow the work that you're doing? How can they keep up with all the things you're doing in your life? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, a lot now. I'm not doing in-person events because I'm overseas and my fiance's in Denmark at the moment, and we're still trying to figure out where we're going to live, what we're going to do, and how that's all planning out. International relationships are complex financially and legally too, so we're figuring that out. So right now, I'm mostly online at integratingpresence.com. I'm on Insight Timer 2/integrating presence, so you can find live events there, a course, tons of guided meditations. I do a podcast. I just launched innerskilled.com, which is just for now, it's going to be a podcast, and it's going to go from there. It's going to go on from there. And I don't want to say too much about it. It's still in development too, but I've got over 300 posts, on integratingpresence.com. So check me out there, and
Awesome. Well, Josh, like I said, stay on the line. We're going to talk a little bit later after listeners, but thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute joy. Absolutely loved it.
Well, likewise, I couldn't echo that enough. It's been a pleasure and a joy and a great benefit and a thrill in a way. So
Indeed. Well, we'll be talking much more in the future for sure.
There we have it, my friends. My interview with Josh Dippold. My apologies for my side of the audio. I think my computer switched inputs at some point, and it wasn't going through my headset microphone. It was going through the computer. And if it wasn't audible, of course, I would have updated it. But I didn't want to lose any of this interview with Josh. So, my friends, I hope it wasn't too unnerving for you. But chances are pretty good. Most of you are meditators, so it probably didn't bother you in the least. But anyway, you go think about the things that Josh and I talked about today. Know that I'll be back here tomorrow with another episode of Zen Commuter in the morning and another episode of Calmer in 5 in the evening. But for right now, this is Tom Walters for Zen Commuter signing off, saying make the rest of your day absolutely spectacular, and I will see you on the road.